all of you all to this beautiful discussion about God Almighty. So, just as we announced earlier, the topic is going to be on the existence of God. So, and it's going to be discussed by two parties, one on the atheist side and one on the theistic side. So, the topic is going to be on atheism or theism, which one is more rational. So, stay tuned as we discuss this. I will pray to God Almighty that it is beneficial to all of us at the end of the day. So first of all, on my on my right here is Brother Murtala Sani. He he's from Kano State. He actually lives in Kano rather, and he has been an orator and a presenter on Islam and also on the concept of atheism and also on the religion of Christianity. And also down here on my left is Brother Akimbade Thomas, and just to introduce Brother Akimbade Thomas because I think I've not had him on my channel for some time for I've not had him on my channel before. So, Brother Akimbade Thomas is actually a clinical physiotherapist. He has been a clinical physiotherapist since 2010. He has a master's in physiology and is presently pursuing his doctor's degree in physiology. Okay, and actually, he's actually a Christian from birth, and he has been actively practicing Christianity for some time, for over 25 years. And he has been a youth pastor, a student pastor at Unilag, and he has actually done some short pastoral work after graduation. So he is an artist, officially became an artist in 2006. So this is his introduction. So I just want us to know this about him before we get started. So, Brother Mutala, you have 15 minutes to just give us your presentation.
Okay, let me come up with my screen. I want to before I start.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just take Brother Kimbali to the background so that he can bring it up. Brother Kimbali, you just be at the background. I cannot take more than 3 things on my screen. Bring it up, please.
Just a second.
Okay. Until then.
Let me. So, can you see it?
Yes, I can see now. So I'll take Brother Kimbali to the background. Well, let me see if I can take myself to the background. No, I cannot. I don't think I can. Okay, let's go.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. The topic of discussion: theism or atheism, which is rational. I'll start off by defining theism. Theism is a belief system that professes the existence of God, while atheism is a belief system that professes God doesn't exist. So the question has to be asked: who bears the burden of proof? I would say that adherents to both belief systems are making positive claim of knowledge. Why? Because atheists are saying God doesn't exist, which is a positive claim of knowledge. Theists are saying God exists, which is also a positive claim of knowledge. So we have to give justification for each of our different views. So the burden of proof is to be beared by both theists and atheists, to give justification, to tell us rationally how they reach their conclusion. I will move ahead to talk about forms of knowledge. Knowledge can generally be classified into two forms, which is intuitive knowledge and theoretical knowledge. Intuitive knowledge, these are knowledge that doesn't require analysis or reasoning. These are knowledge that is innately known by man. For example, the world is real. Theoretical knowledge, these are knowledge that can only be acquired through analysis and reasoning. It requires proof and analysis to justify such kind of knowledge. Theoretical knowledge generally are subjected to intuitive knowledge. The belief in God is a self-evident truth. So I'm going to show within this debate, within the discussion, that the belief in God is a self-evident truth. That's all I have to prove. My opponent will have to tell us why he is going against a self-evident truth. Why? Because self-evident truth doesn't require proof. They are proof in of itself. So if a claim is self-evident, or if a truth is claimed to be self-evident, you don't require any further proof. The fact that it's self-evident, it shows that they are true in of itself. It's only theoretical knowledge that requires further proof. So now, to show that the belief in God is a self-evident truth, I'm going to appeal to two forms of evidence. Number one is evidence from mass attestation through human civilization, and also evidence from academia. It's a fact of reality that every human civilization that is known in history till today has always believed in a higher power that is external to the physical world. So it is clear from this that the belief in the supernatural is a human natural phenomenon. Therefore, it will be unintelligible to demand proof for the existence of God, just as it is unintelligible to demand proof that the world is real. Atheists bear a great burden to explain why they basically go against a self-evident truth that is universal through all human civilization. My second evidence I will present is evidence from academic studies. Academic studies has been conducted to reach the conclusion that children are prone to believe in supernatural beings. One of such studies is that done by Justin Barrett in Oxford University. Millions of dollars was spent on this project with over 50 academics. The research lasted for 3 years. The research is called Cognition, Religion, and Theology Project. People can check it up on the internet. Justin Barrett, in his book called Born Believers, which I have displayed on the screen here, he made a very profound statement, which I will quote. Children see the natural world as designed and purposeful, and that some kind of intelligent being is behind that purpose. In fact, there are now dedicated field of specialized studies specifically on this phenomenon called neurotheology. It discusses the nature of the connection between man neurostructure and religiosity. Studies have reached the point where they are searching for the actual gene responsible for the religious disposition inside man. The American geneticist Dean Hammer published a book in 2005 called The God Gene: How Faith is Hardwired into Our Genes. Professor Andrew Newberg conducted a research regarding this phenomenon. They proposed a number of assumptions which state that there are centers inside the brain responsible for the spiritual side of man. And he quoted a book which is displayed on the screen, How God Changes Your Brain. Also, Professor Kevin Nelson, a neuroscientist, in the book, The God Impulse, Is Religion Hardwired into Our Brains? He states, and I quote, on the other hand, my work also irks some die-hard atheists because it extricably links spirituality with what it means to be human and makes it an integral part of all of us, whether our reasoning likes it or not. Now, having shown that the belief in God, which is theism, is a self-evident truth, it's an innate truth. You don't actually require any conditioning, any social conditioning for you to have the belief in God. There are other psychological studies that have been done by on Japanese children. Several studies have been done online, but I think this view should justify my position. So for the fact that the belief in God is a self-evident truth, we don't have to go further to prove anything. But to show that the belief in God is so solid and rigid that cannot be denied, I will also move ahead to provide a rational evidence for why I also believe God exists. Generally, I will classify human source of information into three main parts. One, we can know things from our senses, which is empiricism. We can know things from logic, and we can know things from transmitted information, which is authentic testimony. These are basically the three ways in which we can acquire information and have knowledge and make positive claims. So now I'm going to provide evidence from logic and authentic testimony and our senses, why God must exist. Generally, there are three categories of existence, namely dependent existence, necessary existence, and impossible existence. Dependent existence are such existence that can be conceived differently from the manner or form they are existing in their parent form. For example, the existence of a bag on top of a table. The bag can be conceived to be under the table or not even associated with the table. So if there are multiple opposed existence to the bag being on top of the table, then we require an explanation that caused the bag to exist on the table over other possibilities. The location of the bag on top of the table cannot explain what caused it to be on the table against it being under the table. The only possible explanation that can explain why the bag exists on top of the table against being under the table or not even or on top of the table or not even associated with the table is something that is external to the bag and table. We can therefore deduce that dependent things can't explain themselves. Dependent things require an external explanation. We can't have a state of affairs in which only dependent things exist because it will lead to absurdity. Now, necessary existence. Necessary existence are the opposite of dependent existence. They can't be conceived of in a different form. Their present state of existence can be in only one possible way. You can't conceive of a necessary existence in other possible ways. For example, a triangle having three sides. Any conception that will not lead to a three-sided shape can't be called a triangle. Impossible existence. This is existence that leads to logical contradiction, and they can therefore not exist. For example, a square circle or a married bachelor. The next question that should be asked is, what nature of existence can the universe be classified as? I would say the universe can be classified as a dependent existence. And my justification for this reason will be given below. 1. The universe is arranged in a particular way and manner. For example, the sky is up while the earth is below. Why shouldn't the earth be up and the sky be below? This is another possible conception of the universe. Why should the sky be up and the earth be below? Why not in the other way around? Why shouldn't the earth be above and the sky to be below? Also, the location of Earth on the planetary system. Why shouldn't the Earth be in location of Jupiter and Jupiter be in location of Earth? Why does the universe have to exist the way it is? The second point I will also point to show that the universe is dependent is the fact that the universe has a beginning in existence. Why do we say that? For the very fact that we can't have an infinite history of past moment. If we had an infinite history of past moment, we will never be able to reach any moment of existence. Consequently, this moment we are having this discussion. Take for an example, someone who requires an infinite amount of time to travel from Abuja to Lagos. Will he ever be able to arrive at his destination? Of course not. His arrival at his destination will be an evident fact that he doesn't require an infinite amount of time to travel. He did require a finite amount of time that allows him to be able to get to his destination. So consequently, for the very fact that we can actually reach this moment of existence to have this conversation, it proves that we also have a beginning for the universe. Because the person that traveled from Abuja to Lagos requires a finite amount of time. He must have a start point and an end point. So for us to also reach this point of existence, the moment of existence, the universe has to have a beginning. It has to start somewhere. So this becomes an evident fact of reality that the universe has a beginning. Recall, dependent existence, by definition, cannot explain themselves. So if the universe is a dependent existence, the universe cannot therefore explain itself. The universe can't explain why it exists in its present state of existence. The universe is dependent on an explanation to explain why it exists and even exists in the present form in which it exists. Recall, we can't have a state of affairs where only dependent things exist. So the universe is in need of an independent existence that's external to the universe, that explains the causal state of the universe. A chooser that prefers the universe to exist in its present form as opposed to the universe existing in a different form, or the universe not even existing at all. A choice indicates a will, awareness, and knowledge, and that's what we call Allah. Permit me to read from Surah Al-Hashr of God's Quran, chapter 59, verse 22. Ba'da billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Huwallahu alladhi la ilaha illa hu alimul ghaibi wash-shahada huwar rahmanur rahim. Huwallahu alladhi la ilaha illa huwal malikul quddus salamul mu'minul muhaiminul azizul jabbarul mutakabbir. Subhanallah amma yushrikun. Wallahul khaliqul bari'ul musawwir. Lahul asma'ul husna. Yusabbihu lahu ma fis samawati wal ard. Wa huwal azizul hakim. In the interpretation of the meaning, He is God. There is no God other than Him. It is He who knows what is hidden as well as what is in the open. He is the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. He is God. There is no God other than Him, the controller, the Holy One, source of peace, granter of security, guardian over all, the Almighty, guardian over all, the Almighty, the compeller, the truly great. What is far above anything they consider to be His partner. He is God, the creator, the originator, the shaper. The best names belongs to Him. Everything in the heavens and earth glorify Him. He is the Almighty, the wise. Summary. To conclude my opening speech, I'll try to remind the audience and my interlocutor that I have established that the belief in God is a self-evident truth. By definition, self-evident truth doesn't require any proof. Self-evident proof in of itself serve as evidence, and we should understand any other kind of knowledge in reference to self-evident truth. So for the mere fact that the belief in God is innate through our natural disposition, as I've established from different academic studies and from also the fact of history, that there is no civilization that doesn't believe in a higher power. Our opponent, my interlocutor here in this discussion, is saddled with a very great burden of responsibility to tell us why he is going against a universal truth, why he's going against a self-evident truth. It is like he's going to argue in this discussion that the universe is not real. So who actually demands proof to present? It's actually the one going against a universal truth. So, and I believe without any shadow of doubt, without any narrative of doubt, that I can even bet my life for it, that my opponent can never be able to present any tangible reason for going against a self-evident truth. Secondly, I've also shown that the universe is a dependent existence, and we can't have a state of affairs where only dependent things exist. Therefore, the universe is in need of explanation, and the only possible explanation that will not result into logical incoherence is that God caused the universe to exist in its present form and also exist instead of not existing. If my interlocutor in this discussion is going to go against the option or the explanation I provide, I challenge him in this discussion to provide any other explanation that is possible that can explain the existence of dependent things aside from God without falling into logical incoherence. This is also a second challenge, which I can also bet my life that he can never be able to provide any explanation aside God that can explain the existence of the universe without falling into logical incoherence and logical contradiction. So viewers should note and watch out throughout the discussion. Let's see if my interlocutor here in this discussion will be able to prove me wrong. With this, I say, Subhanaka bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Very much, Brother Mutala. That was a concise presentation. So, by the grace of God, we are going to bring up our brother Akimbade Thomas to give his own presentation on the topic atheism or theism, which is rational. So, Brother Akimbade, your time is now. You can start.
Like he did by saying, what is theism? Theism is simply an idea that there exists a God. And that idea that a God exists, the believers in this idea also says this God can also be said to be supernatural, which means a being that has ability and powers that is beyond humans. Also, this idea of a God is also organized into what we call a religion. And in different religion, this God is also organized in hierarchical form. That is, there is a God who also has subordinates. In different religions, these subordinates are called angels. In traditional religion, these subordinates are called deities. And these deities will attract small letter G or called God. Therefore, the very idea of a God emanates, originates from the very primitive stage of human existence. And what do I mean? It means the very man who first begins to exist at the level of uncivilized form. We call it Stone Age, we call it age where humans were just living in an organized way. It is the perplexity, the ignorance of these early men in relation to the environment as to looking at the phenomena that happens in the environment. You want to look at the rising of the sun, the setting of the sun. You want to look at lightning. You want to look at rainfall. You want to look at the process of reproduction, either in animals, in men, or in plants. They wonder that how do these things happen? They are perplexed. Perplexity means they do not have an explanation that makes sense, because they don't know how can water be dropping from above, and how can the sun appear in the morning and at the time it goes on? It's something that is mysterious. They cannot explain. And so the early men concluded, based on the level of their knowledge, that somebody must surely be behind. Who puts the sun up? Who opens something, rain drops, and locked it, and the rain stops? So this person or this entity that is behind this must surely be somebody who has a superpower or super ability than them. And that's where you have the word supernatural. It's actually the word supernatural that translates over time, modification of words and times, into what we call God, something that is supreme to man. Now, as human society began to evolve into an organized one, where you have social behavior that is now designed into culture, that means the way people behave, acceptable behavior, and all of that. So the evolvement of the human society into a civilized one, we now have a structure of human society where you have a system of governance, where you have a king, the king has a chief, you have a system of military, system of marriage, system of commerce. That's what I mean by organized society. So the idea of God too evolved into an organized one, and that's how we have religion. So we have a religious God. So the idea of an individualistic God that was in the mind of every human being became an organized idea in different societies. That's why you see in different society, like I'm a Yoruba man, before the incursion of the colonialists who came with Islamic or Christianity into our space, we have a God, and it's called Olodumare. And this God is organized into a religious format whereby you have subordinates of the Olodumare, which is the supreme God. You now have deities. That's why you have the God of thunder, the God of iron, the God of productivity in farming. Now, why I said the idea of a God is a creation of human imagination as a result of their perplexity about the environment and the ignorance of what is behind the phenomenon they observe to be mysterious, is that the way the monarchy system is organized in human society for self-governance is the same way the idea of God is organized, which means it's a transfer of what is physical, which is the monarchy system of government with early men before you start having democracy or whatever. It's the same. It means that it is a human creation because it's the same format. You have a supreme God who sends lesser subordinates that are in my traditional religion as a Yoruba man, we call them deities, like I mentioned, God of thunder, God of this and that, who sends them message. So you see, I'm only trying to prove to you the origin of God. Now, how did we come about worship? Stemming from organized religion that is based on God, that is now organized, is the fact that when there is rainfall, there is plant growth, the farmers are, of course, humans at that level were predominantly farmers. They are able to grow their crops and all of that. But there is another phenomenon due to what do you call it? Nature, due to change and all kinds of geographical changes in human nature, climatic changes and all. You might experience a drought, which means in a particular year, you might not have rainfall as you should have it. So farmers will suffer loss. They won't be able to plant, they won't be able to do anything. Therefore, the humans who have attributed the activities of rainfall to the action of a god think in their mind that, oh, the God who opens the tap did not open the tap. Therefore, we are having a drought. We are having dry and all the plants are dying. When rain, imagine that in August like this, where rain is falling every day, no rain, and everything is dying. So they, in their mind, figured out that something must have happened. It's either this God, something happened. And somebody, in a way, based on human behaviors, with all of these are social science, in psychology, and all of that, we've studied human behavior where human can impute reasons by patterns. That means they can observe something and say, because this happened. So somebody came up and said, oh, what if we appease the God that we have ascribed rain for? What if we beg them? What if we gather something? And somebody comes up and says, okay, since he's the one who gives us rain so that we can plant, why don't we gather plants, fruits? Why don't we gather yam and all that? So that we take it to somewhere and call on him, God of rainfall. We are appealing to you. Please let rain fall, all of that. I'm only explaining to you how the system of worship gets introduced into the human society, the cultural behaviors of the human beings. From there, and somehow, if rain falls and all of that, then they see it as an answer to their prayers and all of that. So you can see that that is how the system of worship in a God that has been arranged, organized into a religion started. So I'm taking you, don't forget that humans created the idea of a God. And I'm taking you through the process as human society begins to evolve. And that is how we have it up to today. Both in, although in Christianity and Islam, they have this, how do I say, an oxymoron or ironical idea of a monotheistic God, that only one God exists. But they are not just being logical and they are not being deep in that conclusion, because in Islam, they have references to angels. In Christianity, there are angels, there is a God called Yahweh, there is a Jesus Christ, there is the Holy Spirit. And Islam, I know you have what you call jinn or whatever, I think it translates to angels or messengers of the Supreme Allah, all of that. So, like I said, that the God idea has been organized into a monarchical, hierarchical format, whereby you have a supreme God and you have a lesser God that you will call angels, messengers, and all of that. So And in Yoruba traditional religion, you have what we call deities. So you see the pattern, whether you want to say your God is Allah, your God is Yahweh, or your God is Olodumare, is the same pattern. You see this pattern, all of you have the way this God evolved. You have a religion, you have a mode of worship that goes with singing, reciting, talking to, offering things. All of you offer things. Islam will offer zakat. Christian will offer offerings and tithe. The traditional believer religionists will offer fruit. We offer all kinds of things. So you see that it's all the same, meaning that the idea of a God is the creation of human imaginations, and it stops at that. Now, what is rational? It is rational to use your mind as human being to imaginatively create, and that's why we have movies, we have storybooks that you read, and they're fictional works, and you're emotional about what you read or what you watch. Some people cry. Some people even see the actors of some movies. Maybe the actor did something bad, but in real life, they see the actor. They cannot make a difference between what they have watched as a movie and what a real person is. That's how powerful the human imagination is, and how human can actually find it difficult to differentiate between what is an imaginary idea, as in movies, and what is real. It's evidential that some human beings can't differentiate. They see an actor did bad thing in a dream, but in a film, but in real world, they are attacking the actor, they are accusing the actor. Or why would somebody cry watching a movie? Why? It's a movie, but why is the person crying, relating, and responding to that movie? It's because scientifically, the human brain can be very, we can say in a context, foolish. It means it is what you present to the human brain reacts to. So, at the level of creative design, creative, imaginative organization of an idea called God, it is normal for a human to behave that way, because creativity is part of the function of the human brain or the human mind. It is normal to have an idea of a legend called a supreme God who is in charge. It's normal to have a myth, a tale by moonlight, the idea of a god, like the idea of the Grecian gods, the idea of the Roman gods. They are beautiful stories. When you watch those movies, they are beautiful, they are entertaining. At those levels, it is rational to think and behave that way. It is rational. We'll leave it at that. But what is irrational? I mean, what is outside the normal behavior of the human mind is the ability or the inability to differentiate between what is work of fiction and what is real. And I'll give you an example. It is abnormal behavior for you to watch me in a movie kill somebody, and you see me in real life and you attack me for killing somebody in a movie. It is an abnormal behavior because you now suffer the inability to differentiate between what is an imaginary thing and what is real. You see, therefore, the idea of a God that has not been proven evidentially, that means without a verified evidence that there exists a real God that is different from an imaginary God, is irrational. And that is the definition of atheism. The definition you gave up there, I would describe it as the definition of the imagination or ignorance of the believer in the idea of a God. I'll define what atheism is. In the real sense, there is nothing like atheism, there is nothing like atheist. But for the purpose of discussion like this, we take up a tag. So the word atheist or atheism is just a tag to describe somebody who responded to your claim that a God exists without giving me a verifiable evidence that something like that existed. Like in the slides you show, you put an object on a table. So it's like you telling me there's an object on the table. Of course, in your slide, I saw object on the tables. I saw one under the table. that is rational for me to say, yeah, there is something on the table, there is something under the table. But when you say there is something on the table in that your slide, and there is nothing on the slide that the three of us can see, and you are insisting and you are claiming that there is something on that table, then you are being rational, you are being not normal in your thinking, either logically or whatever way you want to say it, in your senses. That means your eyes cannot see normally. If it's something that we can touch, let's say it's physical, and you're saying there is something on this table, the three of us are in the room, and you're saying there is something on this table, and all of us touch the table, there is nothing on it. Touch, ability to sense, ability to think. So if we cannot relate with what you are pointing to us, it simply tells us that you are being rational. So therefore, atheism is defined that you who is saying there exists a God that is not an imaginary being, you fail to give us a verifiable evidence with which our senses, because the whole of the human being is about our senses. If you want to talk about logicality, that is secondary, but primarily senses. We want to see, we want to feel, we want to hear. You have not been able to prove the existence of any being. Either you call it a God, either you call it a supernatural being, either you call it Allah, or you call it Yahweh, you call it Olodumare. You have not been able to prove to our senses. We have not seen, we have not heard, we have not touched. So we can't verify what you said. We simply reject your claim. And that is just a simple definition of atheism. Moderator, how many minutes do I have? Sorry, I didn't look at the time before I started. Hello? You are muted. You are muted.
Yes, your time is already up, but I just give you time to conclude your last statement.
Thank you.
What happened was that my time disappointed me, so I just had to approximate. Yeah, you can conclude.
All right. So, existence of God, theism or atheism, which is rational. I just told you the idea of a God is completely, absolutely imaginary, has not been proven with any verified evidence. Therefore, to insist and to claim that something exists that has not been proven is rational. What is rational is to reject such a claim that have no verified evidence, and therefore conclude that the position of the atheist in relation to the idea of a God, a supernatural being or whatever, is rational compared to that of theism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you. We've had the presentation of Brother Mutala and Brother Akimbali Thomas. So, by the grace of God, we are going to go to the next part of the discussion, and that was a beautiful discussion from both parties. We really appreciate them. So, we are going to go to the next part of the discussion, which is cross-examination. So, we simply want each one of them to ask the other person some questions regarding their stand, their position, while the other person can answer. So I want us to make it very, very respectful. I want us to make it very, very cordial. This is a discussion, but at the end of the day, it's a discussion. But at the end of the day, we want to make it friendly. But at the same time, we want the truth about this topic, or we want the truth, because if this thing is so sensitive that at the end of the day, as believers, from my perspective, we believe that this question is something that's so important that it it can determine one's salvation, one's eternity. So this is something that we should pursue with vigor and with determination, but at the same time, we should be friendly while doing so. Okay. So I will just who's going to start first? Did we make any arrangement for that? Who's going to go first?
Yeah, I think he presented first. You can ask me questions now so that I can rest.
Okay. So, Brother Mutala, are you ready?
Let me. We have a 20 minutes for the question.
Yes, no problem. I'm already with my timer, so I'm going to use my timer.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, you can start now.
Give me 1 second, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Something come up. So let me console it. Sorry, please.
Are you ready?
No, I'm not yet ready. Something is coming up on my screen. Let me just resolve it. So I'm coming. Just a second, please.
Okay. So it's a beautiful discussion, and we hope those at home that are watching will be able to benefit from this by the grace of God. Okay. I'm trying to see which format will be better. Okay. Okay. This is what I've been trying to do since. Okay. He just went off stage, so we are just going to wait for him a little bit so that he can come up. I hope he's back soon. So just for the viewers, we are waiting for the third party to come up so we can have the cross examination section. So 20 minutes for the first person and also 20 minutes for the second person. They are going to be cross-examining each other on their various position. While there will be chances and there will be opportunity for you to come up and ask question when they are done with that. Okay, so I'm just going to post the link for this stream on my Facebook page. So if you're on my Facebook page, you can follow the link. If you're on YouTube, I've already posted the link on YouTube, so you can simply follow the link. But on Facebook, here's the link. I'm going to send it now. Okay, let me just go through quickly. Okay. Okay, I think he's back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have to solve some technical issues.
Okay, no problem at all. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready now.
Okay. So
Can I?
your time starts now.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start off by your presentation, Mr. Thomas. I would like to, before I move to my other prepared question for you, I want to touch on some things you've said so far. So first of all, you said that angels are also called God, and the idea of God emanates from primitive stage of human existence. I don't know where you're getting your reference from, but from Islamic theism, we don't regard angels as God. And if you actually listen to my presentation, I actually did reciting from the glorious Quran that stated about our belief on who God is, that there's nothing comparable unto God. So we don't actually refer to angel as God. So I just want to correct that citation from your end. I hope that is taken.
Can I respond before you go
Yes, you
forward?
can.
Yes, yes,
You can.
yes. You can. It's cross examination. You can talk. You can talk at the same time.
Let me ask you, is there
So
anything like angel? Is there anything like angel in Islamic religion?
yes, we have angels, but the claim that we believe that
No, no,
angels.
no. That's all.
Yes.
Let me respond properly. I
Okay.
don't
Yes.
wanted to be sure. I know that from Quran there are reference to angels and okay. What I said in my presentation is that the idea of a God,
Yeah.
in the way it has been organized into religion and worship, is the same, whether in Islam, Christianity, or in traditional religion. And I said it took the format of the monarchy system or self-governance of the early men, because it is a creation of humans. So the idea of a god was also structured
Sorry, what
like
of
the.
time? I just have 20
Wait,
minutes. I just
let me finish explaining so that you
no,
misquoted
you
after
are
what I
already
said.
you said that in the
Wait, let
opening. I
me
already
finish.
heard that.
Let me
I'm coming.
finish.
It's my session of 20 minutes. I want to use it well. You can, when it's your time, you can also use it as you like. But
No,
so
you quoted me wrongly. I need to respond.
no, what I
You
want to
quoted
say
me
is,
wrongly.
can you give
You,
evidence from the Islamic theism that we do refer to our angel as God? Simply saying that we refer to angels in Islam or in the Quran, it doesn't mean that we refer to angel as God or deity that should be worshipped. So I want you to do now, so that you can be focused in your response, you should provide any evidence within the Islamic theism that refer to angel as God that is worthy of worship. That's what I want you to present.
yes, and I was answering that. I took it from where I started. It's a flow. It's a flow. What you are saying is not what I said. It's a flow that the idea of a God is a creation of human being, patterned after the physical order of governance of human beings. That you have a king in a society, then you have chiefs who are subordinate. And I said, when the idea of God was organized into religion, you have a supreme God that you will call Allah. Then you have angels who are also supernatural beings. Angels are not natural beings like you. So I said they are the subordinate, they are the subjects, supernatural subject to the supreme God that is also a supernatural being. I didn't say Islam called angel.
Let me ask you that:
Islam
Do Muslims?
say,
Let me ask you directly: Do Muslims believe in
listen,
angel as God? Just be direct.
listen.
Let's be direct. Do Muslim believes in angels as God? Just give. Let's
I never
be.
said that. I only said Muslims believes in the existence of angels as
Okay.
messengers of the supreme Allah. Is that not true?
So yeah. So yes, that's true. But it's a different thing to worship. If it's a different thing to say angels are God, and it's a different thing to say angels are slaves of God. These are two different things. So I just want to
You are the
clarify
one
that.
that is saying that. I didn't say
So,
that. You are the one
so since
saying
you're
that.
not saying that, let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. So since we've
Okay.
clarified that point that Muslims don't believe in angels as God, the fact that they are supernatural doesn't make them God that is worthy of worship. So since we've clarified that, let's move ahead. You actually made another point that the idea of God emanates from the primitive stage of human existence. It seems to me during my presentation, I did cited two forms of evidence to prove that something is a self-evident truth. I did mention that mass attestation from history that every human civilization has always attested to the belief in a higher power, and also attested to academia for researches by neuroscientists. In fact, people can Google it in Google. There's a field of knowledge that is called neurotheology to study the relationship of religiosity with the human brain. So science studies is telling us that the belief in God comes from the innate nature of man, from the natural. It's not something that you are conditioned to believe as you are trying to present it. So, since I've actually presented evidence in my speech that the belief there are such studies even today that have been shown even in Oxford University. The book has been posted in my slide, The Born Believers, how the God gene in people even look for the gene in God. Can you present any academic reference, any academic evidence, any studies that have shown, as you are explaining, that the belief in God is due to the primitive stage of human existence that cajoles us to believe in God? Do you have any evidence, or is just your personal opinion?
All right. All the what you call neurotheology articles or publications, I've seen them, I'm aware of them. Within the body of the Academy of Science, which is a universal body of scientists who use scientific approach in investigating questions and phenomena. Those publications, what you call neurotheology, we call them pseudoscientific gist, because they do not follow the strict standard scientific procedure or approach in designing research problems. Therefore, in answering your question, it just all the things you have pointed, those pseudoscience, that means false science, jokes that you have referenced, those publications you have referenced, they simply confirmed what I said, that if you have a child, all right, you put a child in an environment where you do not have Islamic religion, you do not have Christianity, you do not have traditional religion, you're able to put that child in a space where there is no influence of any form of beliefs. And you allow that child to observe his or her environment. That child, as she grows, she's going to be thinking and connecting what we call patterns. Patterns means what that child observed and see that this one aligns with this one happens, this one happens. And the clear explanation I gave to you is that the early men observed their environment, saw the way rain dropped and stopped. So they connected it and said something is behind it. So if that study you pointed to is saying that the child is ascribing to something beyond human, it simply confirms what I said, that without indoctrination, without telling a child will begin to connect to something beyond him or her. And that does not prove anything. It simply says the child is powerless.
Let me, because I don't think you are getting the question. Now, here's the point. You are actually making it to be that because of the primitive nature of ancient men, where they lack understanding, where you call it as a stone age, they could not have any explanation for things other than appealing to supernatural. You are trying to give that as the reason why people believe in God. So I'm actually telling you that what the academy, you are calling them a joke. I cited Justin Barrett in Oxford University. Millions of these, not just a million of dollars were spent. People can check it up on the internet. And 50 academics were involved. The publications are out there, and you are just calling them a joke. And I'm asking you to provide an academic research that I support what you said. You can't provide any academic research. I quoted Professor Kevin Nelson, who is a neuroscientist, who actually did research, these studies, and came to this conclusion. You can't just regard them as a joke without providing any evidence from the academia. So, what I would just want to mention on this point is what I think people or audience watching should rather go with what studies are saying. People should go with what the academics are saying than just going with someone that actually sit back and dismiss everything as a joke. So now let me also move ahead. The next question I have for you is, let's go to the other questions I have for you. So the first question I have: do you believe that do you hold that the belief in God is irrational?
That's my conclusion. They believe the idea that a God exists without providing a verifiable evidence is irrational.
Now, my next question for you: do you believe we have rational faculties to reason and deduce truth?
Come again, please.
Do you believe human beings have rational faculties to reason and deduce truth? We have rational faculties, we have ability to reason?
Yes.
Now, I want you to explain. Can you explain under atheism that whole that phenomenon can only be explained, as you are saying, through physical processes or something you can touch, you can see, that phenomenon can be explained only via physical process? Can you explain how can you tell us how our rationality comes from, how are we able to make rational judgment if we emanate from unconscious fluctuation who are not rational and conscious? Can you explain where the rationality of human being comes from?
Oh, you have missed. Can you ask them one by one? I can't already understand the question now. Ask one by one.
Atheism disbelief in the supernatural. You actually believe in the supernatural, right?
You don't get it. No.
You disbelieve in the supernatural, right?
No.
Do you
I
believe
reject
in supernatural?
the existence of supernatural.
I said you disbelieve in supernatural existence, right?
Don't use the word disbelief. I reject the claim that there's something called supernatural being because you do not have evidence.
Yes, you don't accept the possibility of supernatural existence, right?
Don't use the word possibility. You are already claiming, you are not saying possibility. You said there is a God. That's what you said. And I said, I reject your. Yes.
Okay, do you accept that there is supernatural existence?
No, because I do not have evidence.
So everything is physical, right?
Your question is ambiguous. What do you mean everything is physical?
Everything can be explained from physical observation without everything we observe in reality can be explained. Everything we can ever say can be only things that are physical. Once you don't accept supernatural, we only have two sorts. We have either something is supernatural or natural. So you're saying you don't accept supernaturalism, then you have to accept naturalism, which is everything can be explained physically, right?
Let me explain. Can I respond?
I'm asking, do you accept that only physical things exist?
This is my response to you. The word everything, remove it. I believe things can be explained naturally. So the word everything, that is a complex and complicated word. Things can be explained naturally. I reject the claim that there is supernatural things or beings because you do not present me with a verifiable evidence.
Okay, now do you accept that rational, logical? Do you accept that truth is absolute truth is independent of human perception?
Break it down. Your audience might not understand. Break it down for me. What do you mean?
Do you accept that truth, whatever is truth, dependent on perception? For example, saying if I say 2 plus 2 is equals to 4, that is necessary truth, right? To say 2 plus 2 is equals to 4. The fact that 2 plus 2 is equals to 4 is not dependent on individual perception. So if I'm somewhere, I'm saying 2 plus 2 is equals to 5, it will not make 2 plus 2 to be equal to 5. 2 plus 2 will remain 4 regardless of our different perception. So do you believe truth exists independent of human minds?
What is true is what is factual, right? What is factual, what is proven is true. So there is no way what is proven, what is factual can be existing beyond human that is proving it. So
what I'm saying, 2 plus 2 is equals to 4. Will it become false if another person is saying 2 plus 2 is equals to 5? Or it will still remain 4, regardless of. Do you tell me let's say, for example, the whole people living in Abuja believe now say that 2 plus 2 is equals to 5. Will 2 plus 2 now move from being equals to 4 to now being 5? That's the question. Does truth exist independent of our perception, or truth is only dependent on our perception? That's what I want you to clarify.
truth is truth anywhere, so long the conditions are constant for the anywhere. So if you say 2 plus 2 is 4, if you go to another place and they are saying is 2 plus 2 is 5, we will not argue, we want to check and ask the person, how did you arrive at 5? Because the principles that produce the answer say it's 4. By what principle are you producing 5? So if the person can convince us.
What you are saying is truth is not dependent on individual perception. That's just what you are saying, because when someone contradicts an established fact, we'll ask the person to bring justification. Why? Because it's contradicting an established fact. So truth is not dependent on individual perception. So if someone believes that 2 plus 2 equals to 5, it doesn't move 2 plus 2 to be equal to 5. So now, before the existence of human on earth,
Yes.
is the statement, the proposition, there is no human on earth, is it a true proposition or a false proposition?
Your question again, I didn't get that. Before what?
Before the existence of human beings on earth, is the
Yes.
proposition there are no humans on earth a true proposition or a false proposition?
Well, you will first have to establish that actually there was a point in time that human begin to exist. So if you can establish that point in time when human begin to exist, the proposition that human did not exist before that time is valid. So before you jump to that proposition, you must first establish that at point time T, human beings began to exist. Can you do that for me?
What is meant by hypothetical questions?
Yes.
So when someone is giving a hypothetical question, you don't say you have to prove this. This is just the nature of discussion. I'm giving a hypothetical question. Before the existence of human on earth, is the statement there are no humans on earth, is it a true statement or a false statement?
Hypothetically true. We can assume that human did not exist. We can assume that human did not exist until they began to exist. Hypothetically true.
So if you are actually saying it's a true statement, which means you are agreeing with the position that truth is independent of human existence, of human brains, which means, so now the next question to you is, where does human get the faculty for rationality?
I do not agree with what you said. That's not my conclusion. What you said is not my conclusion, please.
I think you are not understanding the. Let's move to another because of that. Because if you actually agree with the proposition that 2 plus 2. Sorry, are you saying something, moderator?
You have 2 minutes 30 seconds, just to remind you. 2 minutes 30 seconds.
2 minutes 30 seconds. Okay, here's my next question to you. Do you believe in objective moral truth?
Objective
moral truth.
Moral truth.
Yes.
Morality is subjective. There is nothing objective about morality.
So you are saying it's not actually wrong for someone to kill a 5-year-old baby?
In what context?
In any context, just to kill a 5-year-old baby, is it wrong or right?
Yes, in 5-year-old baby that has no chance of survival. Let's say you have a 5-year-old child who have a congenital problem, medically established, and in an environment
without any problem, because of time, without any problem, just go down the street, see a 5-year-old child, and you kill him. That's what I'm asking. Let's just don't contextualize it. Is it wrong or right? Without any
even an imbecile knows that that's wrong thing and criminal.
So now, if you are saying there's no objective morality, so now morality is subjective. How can you now say it is wrong if morality is just subjective and not objective? Moral ground you say it's wrong.
Moral behaviors are societal code of behavior. There is a criminal behavior, there is a moral behavior. In law,
for example, let me go a couple of time. If a society decides that it is okay to kill 5-year-old children, will it now become right?
Yeah, it's just like a society, an Islamic society that says it's all right.
Will it be right? I'm asking a question. If a society, answer the question, please. If a society, as you said, moral is dependent on moral construct. If a society decides it's okay to kill 5-year-old children, will it be right?
If within the context of why they are doing that, at the time they were doing it, that is the moral standard of that society.
Will it be right? That's what I'm asking you.
If you carry that society to this present level of civilization,
it is not answering the question. The question is very simple. If a society decides it's okay to kill 5-year-old children, will it be right for them to kill 5-year-old children? This is a simple yes or no question. Don't have to.
No. Your question does not have a.
Okay, time is up. Time is up. Time is up. Time is up. Time is up.
So you can see that you can't actually answer the question. So
it's okay. It's okay. Thank you very much. That was a very, very productive discussion. I love that heated discussion towards the end. I think this is what we want to see. We want to see that kind of intellectual heating. So quickly, let's go to the next brother Thomas Akimbade. Are you ready? Are you ready to grind brother Mutala?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just set this time and we can start.
All right.
Okay, you can start now.
All right. Will you be comfortable for me to refer to God as an English word, God or Allah, in asking you a question about your God?
Just use God. Since we are discussing theism, use God direct.
Okay. What is God?
The basic definition of God, God is the independent. I think I've given that in my presentation, but let me just rephrase. God is the independent existence that exists external to the universe, that is dependent, that grounds the explanation for the existence of the universe. That is, he created the universe because he exists outside of the universe and explains the existence of the universe. For him to be able to create the universe, he must be all powerful. So he's the independent existence that exists outside the universe,
I've
that
heard
is all
you.
powerful, all knowledgeable. He requires knowledge and he has a choice because the universe did have a beginning in existence. So the question can be asked: why is there something instead of nothing? So the independent existence that actually caused the universe to exist has a choice, and a choice is an indication of a will, and a will
Okay.
is an indication of awareness. So this is just the basic definition of God we can arrive through our rational faculties. So I will not go straight to citing scriptures, right? Because you don't actually hold to any scriptural belief, but I want us to discuss just based on rationality.
Okay. Fine. I believe that the moderator will want his audience to be educated, to be informed, and all of that. So I want you to just take the question just little by little and use the word that every person can relate with. Don't use the big words. Okay. Now, God. I say, what is God? What you have just described, I'm asking you, is it you have just described a being, right? A being that exists, right?
Yes.
Now, this being, is it a real being or an imaginary being?
Okay, that's your question. Okay, now the fact that you exist and I exist is an evidence to indicate that the necessary existence, the independent existence that causes us is a real being. Why? Because if it's imaginary, then you will not have been able to exist. There will not be anything that exists.
Yes. You've not answered my question. I said this God that you have just described. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I said this being that you just described. I asked you the question, what is God? You described a being. And I'm saying this being, is it real or imaginary?
I've given you. I think from my earlier presentation, I make three argumentation that source of human information can generally come from three forms, which is our senses, logic, and transmitted information. So from our logic, our mind can conceive of rational truth that is independent of rational mind. For example, the notion that part of something is lesser than the whole. This is a rational truth in which we operate within the verse. Part of something is lesser than the whole. If I tell you now that if I have a box in my house and I divide it into 4 quarters, will one of the quarter be equal to the whole of the box, or one of the quarter will be lesser than the whole of the box, or one of the quarter will be greater than the whole of the box? From the basic principle of rational thinking, which is logic, we will understand that part is lesser than the whole, so part of the box will be lesser than the whole of the box. So I'm answering you directly now. But the very fact that you exist, that you can ask me that question, becomes an evidential fact to prove that the independent existence that caused you to exist cannot be imaginary. It's real, because if it's not imaginary, you will not exist. So your own existence is an evidence for you. So the question is unintelligible because you are asking the question against a self-evident truth, which is innately known by humans.
Now, you did not answer my question. Now,
Maybe
the
you
God,
lack the comprehension of the question, you should say.
listen, the God you described, are you following?
Yeah.
The God you described is an active being, capable of doing, capable of seeing, capable of hearing, and capable of talking. In your Quran, Prophet Muhammad said God dictated the Quran to him. Is that true?
The Quran is a revelation of God given to Prophet Muhammadﷺ.
Was it dictated to the prophet?
Yes, it was dictated to him verbatim through the archangel Gabriel, which is called Jibril in Islam.
Okay, which means if it was dictated to your prophet, it means the angel spoke in a voice to your prophet to hear. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, if the angel, who is a similar being to Allah, similar means that in terms of ability, what they can do, I didn't say they are equal. It's just like me and you, we are human, we can talk, we can reason. It means that God too, Allah, can talk. Since the prophet, since the angel could talk to Prophet Muhammad, it means God can also talk. Is that correct?
So I'll start off by answering your question that you are making two different fallacies with your
No,
statement.
no, no, no. Let me
I'm
finish.
answering. Let me respond. Let me respond. Number one, the first fallacy you made, you are trying to make an internal critique of the Islamic theism, which is
No, no, no,
concept of
no.
angels. No, let me explain, please. I gave you time during my time to explain. That's why my time was fast spent. Let me also explain. We are trying to make an internal critique, but when you're referring beings like angels, you actually don't believe in angels. So what does angels matter to an atheist? So what you are doing is an internal critique. So if you're making an internal critique, you have to represent the person's position accurately. If not, your critique is false. So now you are saying that within the Islamic theism, angels is similar to God, which is actually false. In the Quran, it said, "La yukallifullahu wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad." There is nothing equal or comparable unto him. So if you are making an internal critique, I will advise you make it consistently. If not, your critique will fall. That's the first fallacy you committed. The second, you are saying similarity necessitates exactness, which is actually the fallacy of undistributed middle. So similarity doesn't necessitate exactness. So the fact that angels are supernatural being, what is a supernatural being? Therefore, they are similar or they are exact is a false analogy. That is the fallacy of undistributed middle. So your question by itself is unintelligible.
Now, I did like that. I thought you'd be able to flow with my analogy. The fact that I refer to angel doesn't mean I believe in them. I'm only telling you that you have defined a personal God, a personal Allah. Personal means somebody that has the attribute of human behavior, right? Which means can talk, can see, can feel, can do things. That's what I'm trying to establish. So if you have a being like that, and I said, can you tell me whether this being is imaginary or real? You are saying dependent on that. That doesn't follow. What you need to tell me is that this being that you have described is real or is imaginary. If it is real, you have defined what is rational in three levels: senses, logical, and information. Right? Now, with senses, you cannot prove that a God exists. Logically, you cannot also prove that God exists because the being you have described, you cannot logically establish it because there is no sensual establishment. You cannot show me. So from upon what are you going to build a logical existence? By information, somebody that is mentally not okay, hallucination, all kinds of delusionary behavior can actually see something that does not exist and say it exists. That's why we call it hallucination. Somebody can see a tree and say the tree is moving. That's why we call delusion. So therefore, if you rely on information, somebody can say that God exists. Just the same way that a mentally deranged person can say a tree is moving. If you say by senses, somebody can say, I'm feeling heat. If you see some drug addicts, some of them, they will be inside cold. They will say they are feeling heat. Therefore, something is wrong. Therefore, by reason of sense, you cannot say you have seen a God. You cannot say a God has spoken to you. You cannot say you have touched a God. Therefore, you cannot prove the existence of a God as real being. It remains absolutely 100% an imaginary being that you have studied or that has been written in your religious book.
Okay, to respond, I will just start off by saying you also committed, you are doing an internal critique and you're not representing our position accurately. No one in Islamic theism has actually professed that God possesses human attributes. I did mention before that there's nothing that is comparing unto him. So we don't really believe God possesses human attributes. So that's just by the side. But so that we can proceed with what we've said so far, to ask as a clarification question, because we are trying to say that there is no evidence, you are talking about senses, touching. I want to understand your position as a clarification question. What will you require that can convince you as an evidence for you to actually say something exists as a fact? Can you just give me a list of things that can be fulfilled for you to say something exists as a fact?
All right. There are two levels, or there are two ways by which you can establish what is rational. One is the senses. The other one is applying a scientific method. Now, what is real? It means something that you can relate with your senses. If you cannot relate with something within your normal mind or brain behavior, you cannot say it is real. I just gave you an example that a mental disease called hallucination, delusion, and all types is when a man says a tree is moving. A tree does not move. A tree stands in a position, and everybody can see that the tree is standing there. I just give you an example. So what is real is what the human senses can establish. And that's why we call the person is behaving rationally. When you are behaving outside normal, you say you are being irrational. Then for the things that the physical senses cannot relate with, for example, oxygen, we can use scientific method to make you see oxygen by using some scientific tools. I can make you see the X-ray, the infrared ray that you cannot see with your physical eyes. If I take you to some scientific equipment and you put your eyes there, you will see all the rays. So
okay, I understand. So now what I want to say is, now as a follow-up question to clarify for the viewers, I do hope and I assume, if I'm correct, you say it. If I'm not correct, you actually say it. I do assume that you actually believe as a fact that you have great grandparents. So now, please, based on your criteria now, can you tell me how you can observe your great grandparents via your senses or via any scientific experiment that you can reveal with your criteria? Can you provide how we can know that you have, or we are going to actually say you don't have a great grandparent? So let's understand if you are consistent with your methodology.
All right. Now I'm the one cross-examining you, right? I have asked a question.
Yes, it's a clarifying question. That's why it's a clarifying question for your claim. So clarifying question is to understand your position.
Yes. My question to you was, what is God? You define it. That moves me to the next one. And you asked me a very salient question and said, what will be acceptable to me as a verifiable evidence? And I gave you this response that I just responded to. So I'm still asking you, do you agree with what I explained as a means of verifying what is real from what is imaginary? Do you agree?
I don't accept, because the methodology is not consistent. Because if we are going to follow that methodology, we are going to lead to a greater absurdities. Everyone will have to deny they don't have great grandparents. We have to accept to have a lineage, simply because we can't actually physically sense our lineage or actually test their forces in the lab. We cannot do any experiment to test their forces of our lineage. So if we are going to go with your own criteria or analogy, it will lead to a greater absurdity of denying that we don't have a lineage. And I think This is my question. Human being, we should start from denying our before we can move to God that is supernatural. Let us start by our lineage. So your criteria will lead us to deny our lineage. So let us deny our lineage before we move to God. So that's why I don't accept your criteria, because it leads to greater absurdities.
All right, listen. This is not my criteria. This is established methodology in human psychology. That's the study of human behavior and in science. Establishment of what is
authentic, according to epistemologists, which is a field that deals with the study of knowledge, authentic testimony is a valid source of information. In fact, the reason you believe your mother is your mother is because of testimony. You have not actually done any DNA test to actually know that to ascertain that your mother is your mother. No one has actually done a DNA test. The only reason we believe in our parents is because of testimony. So authentic testimony is a valid source of information.
Listen.
Yeah.
I just told you that it's established, it's a standard procedure that in establishing what is real from what is imaginary, you have the psychological basis and you have the scientific basis. This is not means, that is method, and that's how everything is. All right?
Are you saying that from...
Listen, let me explain.
Okay, explain.
Let me explain. In scientific research or any research at all, you have a section you call methodology. How you want to achieve the inquiry you are about to make. And in methodology, that's how. How do you want to do it? If you come up with method of how, the next question is that, is this how a reliable one or a valid one? Therefore, there are stages to knowledge as to verification. So if you are saying word of mouth is part, it's not a whole method. And is it not even as superior as to the psychological or the scientific method of establishing what is real? Therefore, if you are saying that you want to answer my question with my genealogy, I can even quickly answer you with fossils examination using scientific tools. Everything about you and I can be traced. Archaeological findings, historical findings, all of them will be put together and will be taken to the lab. DNA, fossils, all kinds can establish, okay, how did we arrive at the early men?
Do you have the fossils of your great grandparent? Personally, do you have it?
Listen, if you want to see it, if you are ready to sponsor the research, I will take you to my village and we'll start digging up.
Do you have it?
Sponsor it.
Do you have it now?
Can you sponsor it if you want to see?
Based on what you said believing in things without factual evidence is irrational. But presently, you don't have the fossil of your great grandparent, but yet you believe it as a fact. You want me to even sponsor the research before believing in it, which means you are not consistent in your methodology. You should advise it starts from your grandparent.
Listen, you are a scientist and you mentioned the word hypothetically. Is that also
1 minute, 30 seconds?
So do you believe hypothetically that you have a great grandparent, or is a factual belief?
Listen, let me conclude. This is my session now. You are not responding. I will just conclude.
No, I'm showing that you are not consistent with your methodology because your methodology leads to greater absurdities. We are not doing any research to prove that you have a great grandparent, and yet you believe it as a fact. But yet you are demanding evidence for belief in God without evidence, but you believe you have a lineage without evidence. This is inconsistent methodology. That's what I'm demonstrating.
No, you mentioned hypothesis, and I told you constancy. So hypothetically, I don't need to prove to you that I have a genealogy because it is already an assumption that has been tested. I don't need to test it again. That's scientific. Once you have tested an hypothesis, it's already established. So therefore, you have just agreed that the fact that you do not have evidence for the existence of your God is not enough reason for me to say your God does not exist. In other words, you are agreeing that you don't need an evidence to prove your God exists. Therefore, what you cannot prove with evidence, I can as well dismiss without an evidence.
Absence of evidence does not necessitate evidence of absence. This is a logical truth. Absence of evidence does not necessitate evidence of absence. So you don't actually have a logical grounding for that statement. So what I would say is, Your methodology leads us to disbelieve you have a great
20 seconds.
because number one, you don't have the forces of your great grandparents. You're asking me to give you money to go and do the research, but yet you believe you have one. So which means you are not consistent. I want you to actually disbelieve you have a lineage presently because you are not done that research. After the research, you can now decide whether you have a lineage or not. So your methodology is inconsistent.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's time. That was a heated conversation over there. I think we have some of the audience loving it. We want this to be as enlightening as possible. Thank you very much for giving us your time. Both speakers really appreciate. And just as you said before from the beginning, we know this can be very heated. Sometimes emotions can be involved, but at the same time, we want to keep it respectful. At the end of the day, we are all brothers in humanity, and these are all our own perceptions about what we of reality. Our perceptions sometimes might differ, but we want to strive as much as possible together cooperatively to the truth. Okay, so the next part of our discussion is going to be on the questions and answers from the public. So this is the time for people who are watching to bring up their question so that we can ask both speakers. We want to receive 3 questions from both speakers. 3 questions for Brother Akimbali Thomas and 3 questions for Brother Murtala Sani. And if there's none, what you have to do is just to go ahead to the last part of it. So I'll just give like 2 minutes. Let's just give 2 minutes. I'll just use it to as I'm discussing like this, and let's see whether someone will come up.
No, I think we can just go on with our closing statement. During that time, if there's any question, we can attend to it. If no question, we can end it. So I think he can start by giving his closing remark.
Okay, before that, I would just like to remind the audience that we have there's a link in the comment section. If you want to come into the studio to ask questions, you are free. There's a link in the comment section from the Facebook and also from the YouTube. There's a link. You can come up and ask your question, or you can simply ask your question in the comment section. Okay, don't forget that. So let me just check my YouTube whether there is a question for us, because right now I think I'm only viewing the Facebook post. Okay, there's no question from the YouTube, so I think we can just simply continue. Let's go to the concluding part. Brother Kimbali, you want to conclude? I think that's how you guys planned it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, moderator. Well, I will.
So it's going to be 5 minutes. 5 minutes, please. 5 minutes conclusion.
Okay. I will conclude this way. Based on what I have established in my introduction, that all gods, all deities, under the title supernatural beings, are human creation. They are products of the imaginary conceptions of human thought in relation to how they attempt to explain the natural phenomenon they observed in their environment. And the idea of a god is built on purely ignorance of what is actually behind the happenings of those phenomena that are natural, they consider to be mysterious. But with the advent of scientific explanation for rainfall, for reproduction, for lightning, for rainbow, for mirage on the road. Somebody's looking at water on the highway, but when he gets there, he can't find the water, which is merely a reflection of light on the road. So it's been proven, established that the human beings who created the idea of a god from the position of ignorance did so because of the limited knowledge they have. Therefore, we can safely say that the idea of a god is purely an imaginary work that served its purpose when humans did not know better. But now that we know better, we can actually trash the idea of a God. Trash it means that, why I said so, trash means we can reject it. We can consign it to mere fairy tales, to mere tale by moonlight, to mere myths. Because the idea of a God that has been organized into religion and religious beliefs has created problems for human beings. The idea of a God is divisive. It divides human beings. If you believe in this God, the other person does not believe in your God, that person is divided along that line. And division leads to hatred. Hatred leads to fight. Fight leads to violence. Violence to terrorism. So the idea of a God is actually not suited for human society and therefore should be rejected on the ground that, in the first place, the existence of a God has not been proven, has not been established. Two, it bears no beneficial effect for human beings. Without the idea of a God, human beings will live well. The idea of a God organizing to religion is one of the evils in the world, because without the division that comes along religious line, without the hatred, without the fight, without the inhuman treatment that comes with some religious belief, without the subjugation, without the dehumanization of some religious belief that tags human beings as witches and wizards, the human beings will live better. Therefore, I will conclude by saying the evil that is associated with religious belief organized under the idea of existence of a God can be done away with if we are liberal and rational enough in our mind to reject the idea of a God that has not been proven to exist, let alone be of any benefit to human society. Thank you very much for the time. I will stop here.
Thank you very much. You have 30 seconds left. That was precise. That was good. That was a good presentation. Also, Brother Mutala, over to you. Are you ready for your concluding part? I can't hear you.
I was muted, sorry. I was muted. So can I go ahead? Is it time I said? I'm ready.
Okay. Yes, you can. You can.
So I will start with my conclusion from his last statement that religion causes war. I think we have actually handled this topic before. According to Professor Carter, the 21st century is the bloodiest century ever. And a publication was made in 2009 or 2008. It stated that 87.5 million people have been killed due to secular ideologies, due to liberalism. He's calling us to liberalism and secularity. But according to the research, 87.5 million people have been killed because of secular ideologies. So which should we actually do away with? So if we are going to consider the fact that some people have misused religion to practice some act of violence, then we should discard atheism because it has caused more wars. 87.5 million people have been killed just in the 21st century. You could imagine that. So that's just a numbers game. We want to go by that game. So now let me move ahead to my presentation so far. First of all, I established that the belief in God is a self-evident truth. And I want people to realize and watch the debate and see my methodology compared to the methodology of my ontology. I actually established my argument based on facts that can be verified. I appeal to history that all human civilization have always believed in a higher power. It has something to do with our innate disposition. And also appeal to the academia. Let's see what studies are saying. Neurotheology, people can see for themselves. Books have been written on this subject. The academic research by Justin Barrett in the Oxford University, over millions of dollars were spent on that project with over 50 academics. They reached the conclusion that the belief in God is natural. It's not something that we are conditioned to believe. It's an innate truth. I asked my interlocutor to provide evidence for his claim that it is due to the Stone Age that people are believing in a supernatural being, but he failed to provide just one academic. I provided no less than 3 academics with citation and books that have been written. A field of knowledge have been written. He simply discard them as they are joke, they are pseudoscientists. But we are quoting professor who are neuroscientists. Their researches are there. You can actually read their book and refute it, but it's not intelligible to dismiss academic evidences because it doesn't suit your personal whims. I think if anyone considers his truth, we should go where the evidence takes us. Secondly, I also establish that God, aside from God being a self-evident truth, because self-evident truth by definition doesn't require an external proof. They are truth in of itself. For example, the word is real. It's a self-evident truth. In fact, my interlocutor in this discussion have to assume that I have a mind of my own, different from his, for him to be able to engage me in a discussion. This is what we call knowledge from first principle, which we have to hold to actually move on in life. So, saying that you can discard a self-evident truth without any evidence is actually a joke. Then secondly, I also give argument for dependency. I want people to understand that he never actually refuted any of my argument. I made 2 challenges in my presentation. The first challenge was that he should prove that why should we go against self-evident truth? Why should we go against our natural disposition that science have established, that history has established? He is the one that should bring us proof. If someone is telling you today that the world is not real, my people, who will demand proof? Are you going to ask the person that asks you, that tell you that the world is not real, to bring proof, or you ask that person that said the world is real to bring proof? So anyone that said the world is not real is actually suffering from a mental illness and will actually take them to the hospital. Why? Because he's going against a self-evident truth. So I've established belief in God is a self-evident truth, and the burden of proof is on him. And I challenge him to give us a tangible reason why he's going against a self-evident truth. People can watch the discussion again. He failed. Secondly, I gave argument for dependency. I challenge him to provide an explanation for the universe that doesn't result in a logical incoherence. He cannot do that. The only explanation that we have is God. God is the only existence that explains the existence of dependent things, because dependent things cannot exist by themselves. Dependent things cannot explain themselves. A bag on the table cannot tell you why it's on the table. A universe that began to exist cannot tell you why it began to exist at the point it began to exist. Because the question can be asked, why is there something instead of nothing? And the only explanation we have that doesn't result in a logical incoherence, that doesn't result in a contradiction, is the belief that God exists. And my interlocutor has gone against that belief, but he has failed to give us another explanation that will not result in a logical contradiction. I challenge you specifically, provide another explanation that will not result in a logical contradiction. I also move ahead to show that he is not consistent with his methodology, because he actually said only something that you can sense and something that you can test in the lab can be true as a fact. But he has not actually tested the forces of his great-great-grandparents. He has not actually seen them, but he believes he has a great-great-grandparent, but yet he has not tested their forces. He's actually waiting for me. He's waiting for me to give him money to go and do the research. But yet, so our advice is to start by disbelieving in your lineage before you go to God. And also, he can't tell us why it is morally wrong to kill a 5-year-old child. So, atheism is a failed project. Atheism is a failed project. So, people should run away from it. Killing a 5-year-old child cannot be proven wrong under atheism. As you can go and watch the discussion. He said it's relative. It will be right.
Thank you very much, Brother Mutala. I will have to. Okay, that's a very good one. But you went beyond the time by almost 25 seconds. So thank you very much. Thank you. We really appreciate both of you having this discussion. We thought there would be questions from people who are watching online, but there are no questions. So in the absence of that, but Akimbade, is there anything else you want to say? I want to give you a time because you left 30 seconds of your time while you were discussing, and also the brother took like 25 more seconds. So if you have anything to say within 1 minute, I'll grant you that to say within 1 minute, please, just as a concluding part. If there's still something you feel you can add within 1 minute, please do. Okay, sorry. Okay, you can talk now. You were muted before.
All right, my good friend Sani. I've known him. We started off this discussion on our Facebook platform. and it has brought me to come and to know you, to know about your platform. I'm getting to know you this first time. I really want to commend the two of you for putting on this kind of platform where
Okay.
we Nigerians, we Africans can actually have religious discussions in a forum like this at the level of intellectual and cordial relation. I believe that this kind of discussion will help educate our people. All that we that do not share in religious belief want is that religion should be simply a personal and private affair. We do not say people should not hold religious belief. They have right to do that. We only want a situation where such beliefs does not bring harm, hurt to the human society by the reason of divergent indoctrinations and all kinds of things. So I really want to commend you, moderator
Thank you
of
very much.
this platform. And I also want to say I'm open to further discussions on any topic that borders on religious beliefs, how it impacts on the society, how we can tame extremism and fanaticism that is associated with religious beliefs and all of that. So anytime you call on me, I'll be much willing. Well, this is my first time, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
first
okay.
time
It
for
was
me to discuss like this, so
yeah,
on
yeah.
a live program. So I really want to commend you and thank you for providing this platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both speakers. Thank you, Brother Mutala Sani. Thank you, Brother Thomas Akimbade. We really appreciate you taking time to honor our invitation. And for the audience, we hope you're able to learn one or two things. Seriously, it's time that we judge. We don't just say we believe something because our forefathers, our great grandparents, our communities, they all believe in this same thing. So it's time that we are able to, look closely to these beliefs that we hold and question them and try to see is there any rational ground to it rather than just taking them hook, line, and sinker. So thank you very much for this, and I hope all of us will be able to benefit from it. So till next time, I'm going to end the stream now. Till next time, may the peace, blessings, and mercy of God be upon us all. And also, just lastly, for those who still want to who will watch this stream later on and then they want to ask questions, please don't forget, you can still drop your comment on the comment section and we can see how we can get them to the respective speakers so that they can answer it and then we'll post back the comment on the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. May the peace, blessings of God be upon us all.